Welcome to the Week 5 tight end rankings for fantasy football. Of course, that's why we're here at the Fantasy Football Forge. Real quick, I want to address the fact that we are doing projections now, which come in the form of expected ranges. You can also you can find these projections as they get updated throughout the week. The rankings get updated throughout the week. The projections are as they are. They are projections. But the rankings, the projections you can find up on the website, www.theffforge.com, as well as ceilings and floors. If you're just looking for, if in the case of a ceiling, if you are in a hole this week and you just need to take a shot on somebody, anybody who offers you some pop, no matter what the odds are of that actually occurring, go check out the ceilings. That's where you can kind of find some of the better options there. And then the floors are on the same page, and you can find out where your safer bets are going to be if you're in the lead in this matchup this week and you feel good about things your opponent sucks, for instance. What I want to address is just the fact that I am being quite reactive with my rankings this week. Not with everybody, and to varying degrees depending on the player, the situation, my thoughts on the things. But that's why I give you little nuggets of information for as many of the players as possible while trying to continue to keep the videos relatively quick as well. And so that way you can make up your own mind if you agree or disagree with the logic or lack of logic, depending on how you think of it, going into my rankings. So let's quick recap how I did last week with my Love'ems and my Fade'ems, and as well as my DFS buys, which you can stick around to the end to find out what my DFS buys are going to be for this upcoming week. And once again, I didn't do that ahead of time, so I'll have to do that while recording. Last week, DFS buys, goodbye. Gave you Pat Freiermuth. He got injured, so did the quarterback. So that's a DQ. We don't count that one. Then for the discount bin, I gave you Logan Thomas. Ended up as the tight end 22 with 5.8 fantasy points, so didn't really help you win any money, that's for sure. And as a contrarian option, I give you two of them. I gave you a Chig Okonkwo and Cole Kmet, and Cole Kmet was the tight end 1 on the week. So awesome there. Chig, once again, didn't do anything. We knew that was a long shot. And for my Love'em, I had Luke Musgrave once. He got injured, but I will say up until the point of the game where he got injured, it wasn't looking too promising for him to fulfill my Love'em for him. But, you know, all it takes is one big play, especially at the tight end position, to come through. So that's a DQ. We don't truly know. I'll admit, though, it wasn't looking too great for that. And then for the Fade'em, I gave you Hunter Henry. He had 7.1 fantasy points, ended up as the tight end 19, which puts you amongst the big group of just like okay tight ends. But let's get right on to the fantasy rankings. And right off the bat here, I have a small tier of tight ends for my must starts. We're starting to see how this season is going. We've got guys who have disappointed. I don't consider them to be must starts, even though we might have come into the season thinking they were. And we have our guys who have proven themselves to continue to be must starts. That'd be Travis Kelce, TJ Hockenson, Mark Andrews. And I think with just everything surrounding Sam Laporta and how that's gone so far this season, I'm going to put him into this category. It won't take long for him to maybe fall out of it, but he sure seems like a must start. He may not quite have the same upside as these veteran guys, but I don't know how you sit him right now. And that's going to bring us on to my second tier of tight ends. And these are the group of guys where it's like, I mean, you have to start a tight end in most leagues. And so in that event, might as well be one of these guys. Starting off at tight end 5, I have Evan Ingram going up against Buffalo. And if Zay Jones is back this week, I will be moving Evan Ingram back at that point. I will be moving all of the receivers for the Jacksonville Jaguars back from where I currently have them if Zay Jones returns, because that just, 4 guys are probably not going to hit on any offense. It just brings uncertainty into the equation for everyone. Who's it going to be this week kind of thing. So as of right now, I do have Evan Ingram ranked as if Zay Jones were sitting, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. Then at tight end 6, I have Darren Waller, and believe it or not, Waller has not been terrible. He has not hit your expectations of what you wanted from him, but he hasn't been terrible so far as the tight ends go. He's been better than Kittle, Goddard, Pitts, for instance. So, hey, it could be worse. give him a go in a matchup where the Giants will need to pass a lot, and they need to figure out a way to get the ball into Darren Waller's hands. I think there's a decent chance this could be like a squeaky wheel type of week. I don't know how much I buy into that squeaky wheel narrative, but still, I think there's a reason sometimes that squeaky wheel narrative comes about, and that just has to do with the fact that it makes sense for them to try to get Darren Waller more involved. Then at tight end 7, I have Jake Ferguson, and he's Mr. Consistent. I think that there's a chance that the challenge of a close game here going up against San Francisco, maybe a game where they're trailing, could be very good for all of the weapons for the Dallas Cowboys. At tight end number 8, we have Zach Ertz, and he's a safer play than Mr. Consistent, Jake Ferguson. I just have that as kind of a gut feeling for Jake Ferguson, more so than anything from my ranking of these two, as well as the fact that I do still have some concerns about the likelihood of a touchdown for Zach Ertz week in and week out, but that's becoming a thing that maybe this offense can operate under Joshua Dobbs. And so in that case, maybe Zach Ertz can add a touchdown onto his really good floor. There's a decent chance that I will be moving Zach Ertz ahead of Jake Ferguson, because the more that I look at this, the more I say he just seems like the better play, the safer play, the smarter play. So we'll see exactly what I do with those two, but just a heads up on that. I might be moving Zach Ertz above Jake Ferguson. At tight end number 9, we have George Kittle. And to start the week, originally, I did have George Kittle ahead of these two, more traditionally ranked, like most people are going to have him ranked. But I think that the Cowboys' strength on defense, being the pass rush, is going to force San Francisco to help to shore up what is a weakness of theirs. Their offensive line's not very good at blocking pass rushers. And so I think that forces San Francisco to keep George Kittle back and blocking as much as possible in this game. So I'm not too optimistic about him being the wrinkle that San Francisco turns to in this game, although that is, of course, possible. But I think it's going to be more important to keep Brock Purdy up on his 2 feet, and that's going to require George Kittle to help out quite a bit. Then at rank 10 for the tight ends, I have Cole Kmet, and I have Logan Thomas at 11, and they both played last night. So how did they do? Hopefully, 8-9 points should get them right around here, I would assume. Then at tight end 12, to wrap this tier up, we have Dallas Goedert, and I really don't know what to tell you if you have him. It's been really disappointing up until this point in the season, and I don't know how the optics look going forward for him. But it is incredibly tough to ignore his career up until this point in his career, as well as ignoring the fact that he's on a really, really good offense. At any point, he could have a 2-touchdown game. Ultimately, I think you either have to continue to start him or just move on from him. I don't really like to suggest holding on to 2 tight ends, but if you're someone who doesn't mind holding on to 2 tight ends or normally does, well, you probably already have to. But I give you my blessing to go right ahead and have a different tight end in your roster and to most likely start them ahead of Dallas Goedert. I think he's very, very tough to trust at this point in time. On the other hand, if he's on the waivers, go right ahead, pick him up, and, once again, going with the one tight end theory, I guess it depends who else you have as your tight end, but go ahead, pick him up and start him. Hope for the best. See what happens. I don't know. It's a conundrum for Goddard. Let's move on to my third tier of tight ends, and these are the other starting options. I'm not totally uncomfortable with starting any of these guys from tight end 13 to 22 if I'm in a situation where I must. So looking at Tyler Higbee, you can see the matchup. I didn't talk about this, by the way, in the video. This is the little matchup gauge, a little bit more personalized towards the difficulty of the opponent, as well as the Las Vegas lines for them, etc. And so Tyler Higbee is in a situation where it looks good for him to have a decent game at the very least. However, I do have concerns about him continuing what he's done through the early portion of the season going forward, assuming that Cooper Kupp is back. Because given the fact that they do have a couple of wide receiver weapons who have broken out this season, and then Cooper Kupp coming back, I think it's the tight end that mostly gets left by the wayside. But going up against Philadelphia this week, so I do like the touchdown upside at the very least for Higbee for maybe one more week if you want to ride him. But I think from this point going forward, I would be looking to replace Tyler Higbee. I think it'll be a lesser player for the rest of the season, assuming no further injuries to their wide receivers. Then at tight end 14, we have Dalton Kincaid, and Jacksonville has been the 6th best matchup for tight ends so far this season. So I originally had him quite a bit further back, and I kept moving him up over players. It's like he really hasn't done anything yet this season to warrant being tight end 14, in my opinion. But at the same time, like I said, I just kept moving him up over players, and partly because of that matchup, and just like feels like he's on the verge of having that game. One touchdown is all you need, and I like the back and forth that we might be able to expect in this Jacksonville Buffalo game potentially. We'll see. Then Hunter Henry, the matchup temperature gauge there not looking so great for Hunter Henry. To me, I'm in agreement with that. It just feels like it's an ugly game between New England and New Orleans. I'm not expecting a whole lot of scoring, thus less opportunities for touchdowns. And ultimately, with tight ends, we really just are touchdown hunting if we don't have one of those top few must-start players each and every week. At tight end 16, I have Tyler Conklin, and I do have a little bit of information on him, so it does not sound like much. I think I need to justify my tight end 16 ranking here, but believe me, it doesn't take much at the tight end position to be decent. In addition to that, it's touchdowns that make or break a tight end's week 90% of the time for most tight ends. There are very few that have enough efficiency per target, a deep enough A dot, and get enough targets to be viable, truly, I guess, to be a contributor towards your team's success week in and week out. I think I said the sentence, but to wrap that up, there's very few tight ends who have those three things going for them, that they don't need a tight end in order to have a good week. So moving back on to Tyler Conklin, since week 2, Conklin has had a 6, 5, and 6 targets for 7.5, 4.1, and 7.8 points. That's where I said I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but this is a very solid base to work from, and it's been consistent for him after just excluding week 1. 1 touchdown this week in a matchup going up against Denver, and you're looking at a 10 to 15 point game for him. This is the same team that made Cole Kmet a number 1 tight end last week, okay? It's Denver. I'm betting on guys going up against Denver so far this season. Tight end 17, I have Luke Musgrave, and I like the matchup if Musgrave is actually playing this weekend. He had a long week to recover from his, I believe it was a concussion for him, so I'm kind of expecting him to be back, but we'll see, but do like that matchup against Las Vegas. Then Jonnu Smith going up against Houston. Same with Kyle Pitts. I have Jonnu Smith ranked ahead of Kyle Pitts, and I'm not ashamed of that. Jonnu Smith has been the better tight end, and Kyle Pitts has not looked like himself coming back from that injury, so until we see him to start looking like himself, this just might be the trend so far going forward this season. So, I mean, if you have Pitts, it's once, look at the projections here. Just don't go out and get Jonnu Smith, just play Pitts again, but that's not how I'm going to rank them. Then at tight end 20, have Dalton Schultz, 21, Hayden Hurst, 22, Dawson Knox, and all three of these players are still in this group of, the temperature gauge likes them. And you can play them if you need some help at your tight end spot, or if you have them. I feel comfortable. I'm not going out onto the waiver wire to replace them. That's basically what all these guys are. Now let's move on to players who I'm not looking to get on the waiver wire. If I was playing them, I'm looking to replace them with somebody better. There should be somebody better on the waiver wire. And that's going to start off with my tight end 23, Taysom Hill. Then Noah Gray did really well with the projections. Going up against Minnesota might be a part of that, but I think he's also been fairly involved most weeks. And then, of course, there was week 1, which probably helped his numbers a little bit as well. Then Kylan Granson, Durham Smythe, Chigozie Okonkwo has fallen out of favor at this point. Mike Gesicki, Juwan Johnson, Trey McBride, Austin Hooper, Brevin Jordan, Pat Freiermuth, and Irv Smith are not ranked at this point. Not expecting, I don't know about Irv Smith, but Pat Freiermuth, not expecting him to be going this week. Let's get on to the DFS buys, baby. And I didn't do Love'ems and Fade'ems. I knew it. I jumped the gun starting this video. I really struggle to say I love him outside of, let's go with Zach Ertz. I'm feeling it more than when I did these rankings. So there it is. Zach Ertz is one of my Love'ems and my Love'em and my Fade'em. I mean, I guess it's George Kittle, given that I do have him ranked lower than experts, outside of typically where you see him ranked out of safety purposes, but it comes back to that argument about, I think that San Francisco's going to need to hold him back and have him blocking in order to keep Purdy up on his 2 front feet. His only 2 feet against a very nasty pass rush from Dallas. And so I think there will be 2 or 3 plays written up where he's going to, block, release, and go out. And those are the plays that he's going to need to have a big play on and really helpful in order to pay off as like a top 5 tight end, get a touchdown as well. And that's just not quite enough opportunities for me. Now on to the DFS buys. All right, well, looking at the Sunday set of games, the prices do just drop quite quickly. And we got Sam Laporta a little bit out of place here compared to where I have him as a must start going up against Carolina. So I'm going to say that. I know it's not like the best, highest upside matchup or anything like that, but at $5,000, let's get a 2 touchdown game from Sam Laporta. Let's get that real breakout kind of game for him. That would be sweet. So we're going to go that way for a good buy at $5,000 if you want to spend up. But I think this is a good week to not spend up at the tight end position. There's a lot of options down here. And jumping out right away at me is going to be Zach Ertz at $3,500. In the discount bin, we go for Zach Ertz. And if we're looking to go contrarian, I think I'm going to stick right around there with my discount, in that discount bin pricing. I just don't feel like the large portion of public for those large tournaments, those free tournaments, are going to be betting on Tyler Conklin. So I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin as my contrarian. It is a good matchup, though, so people might really be on top of that. So once again, it might not be a contrarian, but I like him at the price, yet again, at the very least. Thank you very, very much for tuning into these videos. Come tune in Sunday, 1 hour. I've just been off this week with everything. 1 hour prior to kickoff on Sunday, I will be here for the main slate. I will also be here a half hour prior to the 9 o'clock kickoff Eastern Standard Time, the early game against between Buffalo and Jacksonville. Half hour before that game, I'll be here to answer any of your start sit questions, and then 1 hour prior to the main set, I will be back to answer your start sit questions. Thank you. Peace out.